What's up, it's Playstan, and it's time for yet another Tapped Out Gaming cEDH event review. This one was called the One Ring event, since the grand prize was the borderless poster version of the One Ring. This one was 4 rounds with a cut to top 10, where the top 2 people are guaranteed to play in the top 4 pod, and then the people who are ranked 3rd through 10th at that moment split into 2 pods, where the winner of those pods play in the top 4 pod. So an interesting setup, and then it also seems like a good balance of earning and then like playing for the top pod. I'm on cEDH as usual. No changes to the list since my last video, so it's the same deck I took to Fishbowl. Without further ado, let's start with round 1. I was against a Flip Atali, Ramses, which is an interesting pick, and Mono Green 6, a pretty cool choice too. I had a turn 1 Dork and turn 2 Ristic, but when I tried to play an Esper Sentinel on top of that, the Ristic got destroyed, and then the Esper did too eventually. I also tried to cast an Eladamri's Call at one point to maybe get a Dockside, maybe something else, but that got mana drained, and in hindsight I definitely should have politicked for that more, since Atali was going to be cast next turn, and if I got Dockside, the treasures would have come in tapped anyway, and then also they could just mana drain whatever creature I end up getting. The Atali did get cast, and the ETB grabbed my Emil, so I had to burn a Mindbreak trap on it, so they couldn't just, keep flickering Atali and getting the ETB effect. But now that my Emil's in exile, it's a bit harder for me to try and combo, have a bit more limited options. So yeah, I definitely wish I could have held on to the Mindbreak and the Emil, and gotten my Eladamri's, so definitely probably should have tried to politic for that more. Eventually the 6th player tried to combo off, and in response to them trying to return a land from their graveyard to hand, I tried exiling it, but they just cracked the LED they had, pitched their hand, and then targeted it to bring back again, and there was nothing more we could do at that point. I was kind of worried it was a bait, but that was the only time I would have been able to exile the land, so I kind of had to go for it. They ended up looping LED and the land in and out of their graveyard with 6 and then another card. So they made infinite mana, and they had a card that lets them draw. So infinite mana, drawing the deck, that's the game. It sucks my Ristic got blown up kind of early, and I also couldn't stop the combo, but at least I got to see a pretty unique deck or commander, so that part was cool at least. My round 2 was against Chulane, Kinnan, and Timna Malcolm. I had a pretty strong start with a turn 1 Dork, and then on turn 2 I did Mana Vault, Signet, and more Dorks. The Chulane player got an Oof out, which slowed me just a little bit, but mainly prevented Kinnan from going off. I played a Metamorph copying Kinnan to add more colors to the Fabro I had, and also to the cEDH activation. And then I did activate and get a Saheeli to try and combo off. I did need something for the Oof if I wanted to go for the win there, so luckily I had an Otawara in hand because the Saheeli copies are artifacts in addition to their other types. So usually I just grab Saheeli, make a copy of Fabro Elder with haste, and it's a game from there, but this one I had to play around the Oof a little bit and just bounce it back to hand because I needed the Fabro, and then I also needed an extra pip from the Arcane Signet. But anyway, it was pretty fast, pretty solid. Mine turn 3, and I think I was seat 1, so pretty early win, pretty solid there. Pretty happy about it. Round 3 was against Timna Thrasios. I think it was Timna Thrasios. I'm not 100% sure. Sorry in advance if you see this. Urabrask, and then I don't remember the 4th one either. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just have a hard time remembering people's commanders, and this was a pretty fast game, so it also doesn't really help a whole lot with remembering there. I had a pretty strong opening hand and was in seat 1 again. I had a Jeweled Lotus and cast cEDH on turn 1 because I top decked a Fierce Guardianship, so it's the free interaction, so I feel comfortable and safe casting cEDH early like that. And then my turn 2 though, I top decked a Dockside, cast it for 6, or cast it and got 6 treasures that is, played 3 fairy to bounce it and recast it, and it's pretty much game from there. Originally, I was planning on just using Wish Claw that was in my opening hand to tutor for Dockside, but then I just ended up drawing it, so it's like, oh, okay, I'll skip a step. Now, there was a Bowmasters out that should have killed the Teferi when I activated it, but I was just focused on the bounce effect, and I completely forgot about the draw until we were resolving the ETB trigger for the Dockside. So then when we put that trigger on the stack, I already had the treasures from the second Dockside cast, so I just activated in response. So a bit of a misplay on my part, and I don't think anyone else really noticed until I mentioned it. I still had the win, and would have had the win regardless because I had the Wish Claw Talisman. I could have made, the 6 treasures, used 3 to cast the Wish Claw and crack it, and then another 3 to get Aminatu, and then just win from there. And I just wanted to mention this because I only realized it after the game, and I don't want anyone to think I was trying to pull anything, because even though for the most part the draw effect from 3 Fairy is very good, at that moment I just wanted to recast Dockside to make more treasures. Turn 2 Dockside, win game. That's fun and satisfying for me. Definitely not for the other people, especially because they all took 1 turn each because I was in seat 1. And it was funny because in between rounds, or before that round at least, someone joked with me about winning on turn 2, and I was like, yeah, that pretty much never happens. And then it did. So, Dockside, turns out Dockside's a good card. Anyway, round 4 was against, I don't remember. I want to say it was a Rakdos deck, or probably like an Obnixilis, not like an actual Rakdos the character or whatever, but I can't remember, unfortunately. It's another one I'm having a hard time remembering, because I don't believe they did a whole lot with their commander. Again, if you see this, I apologize, I could be wrong. Evelyn, who I have not seen before, and Tevish Crom. My opening hand was kind of crazy. It had land, Dockside, Crypt, and Emil, so I kept it, even though there wasn't really a whole lot of interaction in it, because that's just the win in hand. But I was in seat 3 this time, and seat 1 had a Remora, so people really avoided playing any rocks or Ristics or anything. And then one of my fetches got hit with Opposition Agent, and while they were controlling me, they get to see the hand, so they told the table all about it. Op Agent really hurts my game plan, and I can't fetch for any lands, and I can't tutor for anything, and if I want an answer, I can't tutor for that answer. So I was pretty slowed down after that. The Evelyn player ended up exiling a Displacer Kitten off the Evelyn trigger, so that was bad news because they could just keep casting and then bouncing Evelyn to keep getting the trigger and also reset the once per turn clause. Although at the time, Tevish Crom was the threat to the table because they had the pieces for a breach combo and had an Adnaz resolve. They ended up getting pretty low on life, but we couldn't really think of anything to stop them, and they did eventually just take the game with a breach combo. I tried slowing it down with Lavinia, but they ended up getting around it. In hindsight, though, there was a Wheel of Misfortune and a Bowmasters exiled to the Evelyn, but we didn't think we could get that little combo synergy off because of the once per turn clause. But another one after the game, I realized if they cast Wheel of Misfortune, let the Kitten flicker resolve, and then cast Bowmasters with the Wheel of Misfortune still on the stack, it would have gotten around the once per turn thing, and it would have been enough damage to take out the Tevish Crom, because it would have been at least 15 triggers, the ETB, and then 14 draws. And I believe the Tevish Crom was around 11 at the time, and then if that ended up happening, I think I would have had a pretty good shot. But we didn't really see that opening, I guess, at the time, and it is a pretty niche interaction, so can't really blame myself or the rest of the table, I guess. But that was the end of the Swiss rounds, and I did end up getting top 10, so I had to play another pod to try and get into the Final Four game. This one was against Tivit, the same Urabrask player from earlier, and Yuriko. So while I don't think my previous hand was greedy because it is just the win available, like right there, this one I think definitely was a bit greedy. It only had Boseiju for the land, and then birds, and then some tutors. So I would have had to play Boseiju, play the birds to be able to play the tutors, but even though I do think it is or was greedy, like the line was still there. I could still see the winning line from the opening hand, even though it's greedy. So like even if I didn't hit any lands, I think I still would have been okay. The dockside count wasn't a whole lot early, so I kind of just played Dorks and a Derevi and then passed. But then the Urabrask player killed my board with a bunch of like burn spells and decided to put themselves to 1 life with a Treasonous Ogre, and then they passed, and at their end step the Yurikov player flashed in a creature, so they were pretty much dead. And they took their artifacts with them that would have contributed to the dockside count, so that slowed me down a bit as well. So not a great spot to be in. Eventually though, I did get a Displacer Kitten out and play a dockside, so I was making a good amount of mana, but I didn't have Sisei out, and I also didn't have any pips for the Sisei activations. And I knew Yuriko had a Force of Despair to threaten my board with. So this was a big misplay that was not happy with myself about. I should have just waited to try and go for anything, but I decided to be a little stupid and a little greedy. I played Sisei, activated, tutored a Ragavan to kind of get a legendary pip, and then when I went to my end step, they of course cast the Force of Despair, and I responded with an Abrupt Decay just to get another flicker, because I thought with all this mana, of course there'd be some way to win at instant speed, but there wasn't, and I just wasted a bunch of mana and my Abrupt Decay, and all the stuff except for the kitten ended up dying. So yeah, that was bad. After that turn, a Cursed Totem hit the battlefield, so I was in an even worse spot because I couldn't use my Fabro, and I definitely couldn't use Sisei. I ended up drawing a Wish Claw, so I thought I was saved, and I thought I could take the game by tutoring for a Tyvar to reanimate Dockside, and then flickering the Wish Claw with Kitten to keep tutoring. But as I was about to realize, Kitten can't get objects you don't control, so really what I needed to do was grab Aminatu, flicker the Wish Claw, tutor for the Tyvar, and then cast it, which then triggers flickers Aminatu, flickers the Claw. I keep getting the Wish Claw back, and then just go off from there. But I really only saw that line after the game, so I was pretty like upset and disappointed with myself for not noticing that and remembering the Aminatu Wish Claw interaction, and also for not checking and making sure the kitten could flicker the Wish Claw. So basically what ended up happening is I got Tyvar, reanimated Dockside for a whole bunch of treasures, and then just sat there. So yeah, that was a very bad, and I was again not happy with myself afterwards for 1, not realizing the line, and 2, just making bad decisions leading up to it. So I had to just pass with all the mana sitting there, all the treasures, and Tivit ended up killing us with combat damage, you know, hitting, dealing damage, making some stuff, taking an extra turn, more combat damage. Because there was no 4th player, because the Urabrask had died pretty early, they wouldn't have been able to take infinite turns, but our life totals were so low at that point that just 1 or 2 extra turns was enough to just kill with the 6/6 flying commander. They did end up moving on to the final pod, although at the end, eventually a different Timna Malcolm player took the whole thing. So I'm never upset about losing as long as I played my best, but in the last game I definitely made a few mistakes and could have played a lot better, so I just wasn't happy at all about that. But overall, I still did well, and I did have fun, so it was still an overall positive experience, and I'm glad I participated. I want to say congrats to the winner, good game to everyone I played with that day, and I'll see you guys at the next one.